Hello all. We have already initialized a Git repository. We have done using both methods. We have cloned from the repository that is present on some server, and we have started a new, like we have initialized a repository from our local machine. We have done both. Now what we will do is we will make few changes to the code, and we will see how Git is tracking those changes, like how Git is committing those changes, how it is pushing. We will see that. Even before doing that, we will understand the kinds of files that are present in Git. So Git categorizes files into two categories. One is tracked file and other one is a untracked files. So let us suppose you have a folder, okay? You have this code folder, like there is a folder called code, and what we have done is we have converted this folder to a Git repository by running git init command. So what now does is it will track the changes that are happening to the files present in this code folder, right? Okay. Now, like I have created a new folder, right? Now what I'll do is I'll add a new file, like let's say some a.java. So I'll add some a.java as my new code file. Now what I have to do is, like this is a new file I have created, right? Git is not aware of this file, okay? Like under the code folder I have created this new file and Git is not aware of this file. So we can call this as an untracked file, because tracked files are the files that Git is aware of and untracked files are the files that Git doesn't know. Okay. Now I have created this a.java. Now I have to tell Git explicitly that from now onwards you track this file as well. Okay. Now you might get one doubt. Like I have already initialized this folder, okay, saying that you should track the changes that are happening to this folder. Why for each and every file that I create, why I should tell Git explicitly to track it? So the reason being is, you usually in any repository you can see documentation files or readme files. Those are or log files also. Those are just for understanding, okay? But you don't want Git to track those changes. If the design of the Git is like whatever the file you created in this folder, if Git tracks it, then you might end up tracking those files also which are not required. Okay, that is why what Git says is, you tell, it's developer's decision to tell Git that to ask Git to access the file, like to track the files. Git doesn't decide which files it should track. If developer says that you track this file, then Git starts doing that. If developer wants to, like if developer says that now stop tracking this file, then also Git does that. Okay, so that's why, to avoid tracking these log files, documentation files, or binary files that gets generated during the build in the repository, Git doesn't take decision of tracking each and every file that we create. Okay, we should tell explicitly Git that you track this file. Okay, so initially whenever I create a new file on this folder, Git doesn't know, right? That is called as an untracked file. Okay, and now using Git, there is a command called git add. Okay, using git add, you can tell Git that you can track the file. So now what I'll do is I'll run git add command against this file. What Git does is, okay, I'll from now onwards I'll track this file. Then it will move to tracked file, from untracked to tracked file. Okay. So a.java now becomes tracked file. Now, if I modify this a.java file again, then it will become a tracked file, because untracked files are the files that we create newly, or Git doesn't track it. Tracked files are like Git is already aware of. Now, like initially I have created 10 files. I tracked, like ran git add command for these 10 files, and we have pushed it to the repository. So these are present in the snapshot, right? Like whenever I make changes and push it, these are present in the snapshot. So all those files are called as tracked files. Okay. Basically what you can say is tracked files are the files that are present in the snapshot already, or you explicitly tell Git to track it now. Okay. Oh, now like you have create, like whatever example we discussed now is like you have created a new folder, and then you ask Git to track it. Now what happens is usually developers, they clone repositories from folders, right? So to explain that, like let's say there is a server A that is hosting on some website, and a developer D1, he is already using the code, and developer D2 is already using the code. Now developer D3, he has joined the company. Okay, he has joined the company, and then he wants to work on this project. What he does is he clones the files, he clones the complete repository to his local machine. Now all the files that he clones are comes under tracked files, because that is already present in the last commit or last snapshot. Whatever files that are present in the snapshot, those are considered as a tracked files, because Git was aware of those changes. Since Git was aware, then only it would have pushed. Okay. So whenever you clone a repository, all the files that are present comes under tracked files. Okay. Whenever you create a new file, then that comes as a untracked file. Under tracked files, you can have multiple categories as well. Now what happens is you cloned a repository. Okay, all are the tracked files. Now you make changes. Initially these are the tracked files, and these are not modified, because you just clone whatever is present in the last snapshot. You did not modify that. So initially the status is the unmodified. Now what I'll do is I'll modify some change. Okay, I'll modify few changes to the code file. Then those files are called as a modified files. So those are already tracked, but you have modified it. Okay, this is another category. Now another thing is, now you have modified the file. Okay, like you have modified a file, you want to commit it. Okay, then what you will do, you the modified file, you will add it to the staging area. So whenever you add a modified file to the staging area, then that file becomes a staged file. So I'll like this would be more clear if I show this diagram. Here you can see, right, these are all, these three categories comes under tracked file, and only this category is an untracked file. So whenever you create a new file, then that is an untracked file, because Git is not aware. So whenever you add the file, that will directly move to the staged. Okay, now under these three categories becomes tracked files. Okay, so in the tracked files, you have unmodified file, you have modified file, and you have staged file. So you are tracking the file, but you have not made any change. Okay, then that is called as a unmodified. So like to make unmodified file a modified file, what you have to do, you can just add few changes. I have a file. Okay, let's suppose I have some A file. It's initially it is tracked and unmodified. Now I make few changes to this file, then what it will become, it will become to modified. So if you see here, whenever you edit the file, it will go to modified. Okay, it goes to modified file. Now this modified file, what you have to do, you have to commit it. So to commit it, you have to move to the staging area. So you have to stage the file. Okay, that is one thing. And if you see here, from the staged directory, whenever you commit it, it becomes the unmodified file. Okay, because let's suppose you have already committed the files, you check out those files onto my local machine, then it becomes as a unmodified, tracked unmodified, like I was explaining you the Git clone scenario as well, right? So that those are all tracked files and unmodified files. Okay, and one more thing what I'll explain here is how Git works is, so first, like let's consider two things: a working directory and the staging area. This is WD is a working directory, and this is the staging area. Okay, so ST is the staging area. Working directory is the folder what we are working on. Now I have a folder, as I was explaining you. I can have this code folder. Okay, in the code folder you can have multiple files. So this code folder and the files that are present, basically that folder we can call this as a working directory. Okay. Now staging area. Staging area means whatever files you want to go in your next commit, those files I can move to the staging area. Okay. Now in working directory you have 10 files, but you want to you want only 2 files to appear in the git or to appear in the repository. Then what you have to do is, you cannot directly push it to the repository. What you have to do is, first you have to push those 2 files to the staging area. From staging area you have to push it to the repository. So staging area is very important in the git. Whatever you have to push to the repository, those have to move to the staging area, and then only you have to push it to the repository. Okay. So like working directory is a normal folder what you are working on, but whatever you want to move or whatever you want to go in the next commit, those have to go to staging area first. From staging area you have to push it to the repository. So let's like we have understand the theoretical concepts, right? Let's understand by running, like by making few changes to the file. Okay, I'll open a PowerShell for this. So what I'll do is I'll create a new folder. Like I'm starting a new project from here itself. I'm not cloning from anywhere else. So what we will do is, let's suppose git add commands we are running it, right? I'll create this folder. I'll move to git add. Initially you don't have anything else. Now as discussed in the last video, we should ask git to version control this particular folder. So for that what I'll do is I'll do git init. So if you see here, it has initialized git empty repository. So whenever a folder gets converted to the git, you will create this entry .git. So .git is so important thing, we will discuss about that later. Now if you see the list of files that are present, you don't have anything. Let's run git status command. Nothing is there, nothing to commit, create or copy files, nothing. So what I'll do is, now I'm starting a new project, right? Now I don't have any tracked file, any untracked file, because I don't have anything here. I'll create a new file like test git add. I'll add to git add.txt file. So what I'm doing here is, I like echo test git add. I'm asking the command prompt here to add this particular line to the new file git add.txt. Okay, now I have done that. If you see, I can see a new file here. Okay, I can see git add.text. Now what I'll do is I'll run the git status. Git status is so important command which will tell the status of your file. Okay, now I'll run git status. If you see, like as we were already discussing, that whenever you create a new file, git is not aware of that file. That is an untracked file basically. If you see here, on we are on branch main, and we already discussed that whenever you start a new repository, by default the branch would be main. If you don't want main branch, if you want some other branch as your default branch, you can edit in the git configuration command. Okay, and there are no commits yet. And here if you see untracked files, git add.txt is an untracked file. So git tells that you have created a new file and that is untracked. If you want to make that file as tracked, you do it using git add command. If you don't want that, then ignore it. Okay. So it is giving you the command also. Git is so clever that it is displaying the command also how to make that as a tracked file. Here you can see the right untracked files. Use git add file name to include in what will be committed. Okay, now what I'll do is, Here you can see, right? Initially, this is an untracked file. This is an untracked file. When I add the file, it will move to the staging area. So this is untracked file. Let me add it. Git add.txt. Okay, now let's run git status again. If you see, we are on branch main, no commits yet. Now changes to be committed. So what had happened is whenever I ran git add command, it moved to staging area. Okay, here from untracked, you add the file, it moves to staging area. This is what had happened. So I already explained you, right? Whatever is in the staging area, that we can commit it. That will go in the next commit. So that's why, like if you want, in currently in the staging area, you have only git add.txt file. Now, if you want to commit, you can commit it. So what I'll do is, I just don't want git add.txt. I want to add more files to my staging area and then commit all those files together. So let's create another file. Echo hi git version control system version control.txt. Okay, now I have done that. When I ran ls, there are two files that are present in this directory. I'll run git status command now. If you see here, we are on branch main, there are no commits, and the changes to be committed is git.txt. Since I have created a new file, version control.txt, this had become untracked file. Okay. So here one file gitadd.txt was moved to staging area by using gitadd command, and this did not move. What I'll do is I'll move this as well. Gitadd version control.txt. Okay. Oh, sorry. Add. Now I'll run git status again. So if you see here, I have created new files. Initially, those were untracked files. I made these files as tracked by running git add command. Now these two are in the staging area. So these two are in the staging area. Now I can commit it. So what I'll do is I want to add one more line to my version control file. Initially, I just added hi git version control system. Now I'll add one more file. Hi test git add command. Okay, I'll add this file. So I'm just appending it. So if I want to replace, I just use single single symbol here. Here I'm using double because I just want to append it. Now let's run git status command. So if you see here, version controls.txt is present in staging area as well as changes not staged for commit. Like you might get confused why the same file is present in two places. This is because git git tracks only the changes. We were already explaining, right? Git takes the snapshot of the changes. It doesn't take the file as a whole. Like in this commit, only this line will go. Like this first line, echo hi git version control system will go, and this commit, like this hi test git add command will not go. Now if I commit it, now this is the state of my git, right? Now if I commit it, in my commit only this line will be there, hi git version control will be there, this won't be there because this is not moved to the staged area. Okay, and one more difference also, initially when I created the version control.txt, it was appearing as a untracked file. Now if you see, this is not appearing as an untracked file, this is appearing as changes not staged for commit, because this version control system initially it is an untracked file. Now when I did this git add command, it moved to the tracked file because it moved to the staging area. When I added the file, it moved to the staging area. Now if I edit a staged file, it will become a modified file. Okay, that's why it is not a untracked file anymore. You can observe that changes not staged for commit. Okay, it is modified. Here if you see, This is an untracked file. Now this is a modified file. Now you would have understood, right? If you make changes to any tracked file, that will be shown as a modified file. Okay, here you can see that. Now in this, now if I go and commit it, only this change will go, echo hi git version control system, and this change will not go. So git git takes only the changes till this part. This git will not commit these changes. Okay, you would have understood, right? Now what I want is, I want to push both these changes, git version control system and hi test git command, in the same commit. What I have to do is, I have to move it to staging area now, because if it is a modified file, to push it in the same commit, you have to move it to the staging area. Okay, now I have done that. Git status, if I do, now you don't see this one, because in this commit, this also went in this commit. Okay, this also went in git commit, current commit. So I have added git add file, right? So whenever you run this git add, initially you have a staging area. In the staging area, you did not have anything. Okay, what I have done is, I have added git.txt to my staging area. Okay, that was added. Next, what I have done is, I have added version control.txt also to my staging area using git add command. Then this one was also in my staging area. Now I have modified it. Hi test git add command. This was not in staging area. When I ran git add again, this one also, this particular change also moved to the staging area. So now if I go and commit it, all the changes whatever I have done here, like echo hi git version control system, this one, and the changes that are present in git add will get committed. Okay, so you have understand three things here. One is, when I created a new file, it was untracked. When I did git add, it moved to the staged. When I modified a staged file, it comes under the modified command. And one more thing is, whenever you make two changes to the file, and when you commit only a single change, only that change will go in the commit. The change that was not moved to the staging area will not go. Okay, yeah, you have understood, right? Both git status and the git add command. So if you see the git add command here is, it has two purposes. One is to move untracked file to staging area, and the other one is to move modified file to the staging area. That's what we have done here. If you closely observe, here is, initially this is untracked file. When I did git add, untracked file moved to staging area. Okay, now that is done. One more thing here is, you have modified a staged file or a tracked file. Then to move the to move the modified file, then you did git add command. So basically, git add command is like to move changes to the staging area. So whatever you want to go in the next commit, you have to move to the staging area, right? So git add command does that. And what can go to the staging area? Either untracked file can go to the staging area, or modified file can go to the staging area. So the purpose of git add command is to, either it moves untracked file to staging directory, or it moves tracked modified files to the staging directory. And git status command is used to show what is the status of the file. And we'll discuss one more command. If you see git status command, it is, too vague. Sometimes I don't want this much information to be displayed. I just want a shorthand notation. What you can do is, there is a command git status // short. Okay, when you do this, git will show here, yay, like this is an added file. Git.txt is an added file, right? That is a new file. And version controls text is an added file. Now let's modify git add.txt. Okay, echo hi git add text. I'll add it to git add text. So when you run git status, you can see git add.txt under changes to be committed, and under modified file also, because I have not moved this particular change, or this particular change to the staging area. So what I'll do is, I'll run git status -s. if you see here, there are two things. So basically in the output, you have two columns, first column and the second column. First column is for the staging area and the second column is for the working directory. We were already discussing, right? Whatever files that you see in your folder, that is called a working directory. Whatever is in the staging area, that is called as a staging part. Here if you see, in the staging part, a new file is added, and in the working directory part, gitadd.txt is modified now. For the version control.txt, if you see, that is present only in the staging area. In the working directory, it is an unmodified file. That's why you don't see anything here. Okay. Now what I'll do is, let's create a new file here. Echo hello. I'll create some hello.txt. New file here. And I'll run git status small. If you see here slash, like you have two question marks. So when you have these two question marks, it means that this is an untracked file. Okay, this is a newly created file, or this is an untracked file basically. So question mark says that it is an untracked file, and the first column basically is for working directory and the second column is basically for the staging directory. Okay, now let's do one thing. I'll commit one part. I'll commit git add first. I'll what in the current staging area you have these changes, right? I'll commit that. Git commit. I'll explain about git commit command later. For now, just follow me. So I have done that. Now let me run git status -s command. So, or let me run this. So when you run git status command, there is nothing in the staging area, because whatever was in the staging area, I moved it to the repository by doing the git commit. Now you don't have this thing. Okay. Now nothing is present in the staging area. What you have is this hello.txt one you have, and this git.txt you have. What I will do is, I will push, like I'll move this content to the staging area. Git add git.txt. Okay, let me run git status short again. So if you see, initially you have seen a for this, because that was the first time git created this file. Okay, because you have created the git.txt file, you moved it to the staging area. So it had moved a newly added file to the staging area. That's why you have seen a. Now what had happened is, this already went in the last commit. Git add went already in the last commit. So that was not a newly added file anymore. That was a modified file. That's why you can see M here. So first column represents the staging area status and the second column represents the working directory status. So initially you have created a new file and you moved a new file to the staging area. That's why you can see A here. And in the working directory you have modified the file, right? That's why you can see M here. Okay, now what I'll do is, I'll modify git.txt file again. Echo modify file git add.txt. Let me run git status -s. So if you see here, you have two M's. First M is for staging part and second M is for working directory part. Let me run simple git status command. So in the staging area, you have one change. Okay. In the staging area, you have one change, and in the other part, in the working directory, you have another change. So for the staging area, it shows this as a capital M, first M, and for the working directory, it will show this M, and this untracked file, it will show here. So basically whatever git status -s, whatever is representing here, that will show the same thing here, but it's just a shorthand notation. Okay, so that's it about git add and git status command. Thank you.